Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning. How's it going, Leo?
I'm very well, thank you, my friend. It's so nice to see you on this very sunny, bright January morning. How's everything over there in Barcelona?
It is fabulous. I actually made a New Year's resolution. I have always the listeners are going to be shocked because they love hearing us talk about our exercise, but they will be shocked to hear what I have to say, which is I have always hated the gym. I have had a gym membership 2 different points in my life, never for more than like 6 months. So this was the longest stint. This was like 9 months the last time. But I've always hated the gym. I like doing like really intense like HIIT or workout videos or whatever at home in the privacy of my own home. And then going for walks. I love walks. And so I live really close to a beautiful park in Barcelona called Montjuic. And I was like in the habit before I signed up for the gym, like I would go and do that like for an hour, hour and a half every day, and then also walk to work and take my dog, and it was fab. And so I had this epiphany the other day after I had been not going to the gym for a few weeks, and I found myself naturally getting back into this kind of rhythm when we were traveling. And I was like, hey, this is fab. So I went to the gym the other day and I got rid of my gym membership. It felt great. And I have been for the last week, like doing all my exercises at home. I could barely walk yesterday. So like anybody who says an at-home workout is not effective is lying. And I went for a beautiful walk this morning up in Montjuic with my dog, and it was just fab. So I'm I'm really happy. I'm really pleased. What about you? What's going on?
Love that, by the way. Love that. When everyone's New Year's resolutions is to join the gym, you're giving up the gym to do other things. That's cool. I really like that. I really like that. So I just because I like to do what you're doing, I like to copy you. Always. I've been dropping Sadie at daycare and then walking along the seafront, and we've had some beautiful mornings. And obviously, I'm down on the south coast now, outside of London, and so yeah, I make my first couple of work calls while I'm walking along the seafront, and get that like nice hours exercise as well, through walking. But then and then more often running at lunchtime. So I obviously love running. What I've done is I've signed up for a half marathon in March. So I've signed up for a nice kind of like hilly off-road one. So it's called like the Stenning Stinger. And it's nerdy, right? We're talking like 50 people probably, like, and lots of Gore-Tex running around these fields in March. It's middle-aged man's paradise, really. But the reason I've signed up for it now is because then it keeps me honest for the next, like, I have to train now for it, and Brighton's got a lot of hills. So instead of just doing flat runs on the seafront, I have got to go out into the hills and go and get after it. So yeah, I guess my resolution is to maybe start doing a few more of those type of events, because I do really enjoy them. I enjoy the day. It's fun,
Oh, Leo, I don't know if we can be friends anymore. I used to have a rule. Before I was in my 30s, I used to have a rule that I was not friends with marathon runners or half marathon runners or anybody who signed up for anything more than a 10K, because I thought they were all psychopaths. And now, into my 30s, all of my friends tend to be doing this kind of stuff. So I guess I have no choice. So I will let you stay in the friendship circle, in the circle of trust.
I'm in the roster. I'm still on the roster. Sorry. Well, that's good for me. And we're going to touch on the athletic leisure trend as well later in the show. So great way, Sarah, to reference what we're going to talk about later when we look at 2025 trends. But I think there's something about I think where we all kind of like where a lot of us who lived in big cities probably partied a lot in our 20s. Your 30s then start to become about like kind of, you're trying to do other things, like you are doing those nice walks with friends, or you're running with friends, you're doing whatever. So it kind of carries on, doesn't it? So where you might get all your exercise through raving in your 20s, it suddenly becomes signing up to half marathons and all those dreadful things. But I agree. When I was younger, I was like, God, I'd never do that. Wasn't that boring? Just running, not chasing a ball or playing a game, just running. And now I'm like, it's all I can do. It's all I can do.
Oh, well, to each their own. I've not hit that phase yet. I like the exercise and the outdoor stuff, and it is true. I do a lot more like walks and things like that with my friends and raving. So the balance is shifting for sure. But yeah. If I ever tell you I'm running a marathon, just I don't know, just lock me away.
It's over. For you. Audience, did you notice how she basically subtly mentioned that she was younger than me there and went, "I haven't quite hit that phase yet." That was such a diss, wasn't it? I know you all picked
That was not
uh,
the intention. I'm so
diss,
sorry.
wasn't it? Ah. At least I'm not as old as Damien. I need Damien here. Let's get Damien back on. Sarah, we got to get into. We've got a big agenda. We've got a big agenda this week. Lots to discuss. But before we do, I've just got to say, I'm just back from 3 days with the family at a hotel called the Newport Manor, which is part of the luxury family hotel group. Oh my God, Sarah, we had the most fun ever. Concept is country hotel, of which the UK has tons. Country hotel geared towards people with small children. So they have a nursery on site with like Ofsted inspected like facilities, so like government inspected facilities. So you can leave your kids in the daycare part of it. And they do cinema showings of like kids' movies. There's popcorn, there's milk and cookies, there's bedtime. Someone reads a bedtime story to everybody at certain points of the day, with the idea being that the idea being that your kids are having as much fun as you are, and at the moments when you can pass them on to someone else, you can go and get in the outdoor hot tub or the sauna or go and swim in the pool. Amazing. I've got to shout out, we had the best couple of days. Like, these guys know how to do hospitality. It was so fun.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That gives me hope for the future of parenthood that awaits me at some point because I that was the one thing. It's like, gosh, like is a holiday again? So that is amazing. The only time aside from what you've described to me here, which I think is an even better concept because it's in the middle of nowhere and it's more country vibes, which I love, has been like a few times where I've stayed at one of those like all inclusive places on the Canaries, for a few days or whatever. And they do oftentimes have these like kid zone areas and have activities and it's the same sort of deal. So you can like the parents would just like drop their kids off for even if it's a few hours, it's just a break. So
Yeah,
that sounds
massive.
amazing.
It's
I
massive.
wonder if that is going to be more of a trend uh, in the future, like just more kid friendly stuff, but that isn't all about the kids. It's about drop your kids off.
Yeah, it's both, isn't it? Right? It's both, and it's like so. It's my hospitality highlight of the week for sure. I mean, I got to live one and not just read about one. I got to experience one. But it's a hotel group that really understands who its customer is. Like really gets it. And as a consequence, they charge quite a lot of money for the experience. Like, it's not cheap, but it's also really good value for money when you consider that it includes daycare facility. And the fact that if you're lucky enough that your kids will go into the club or watch a movie or drink the milk and the cookies and have a story read to them, you get time to connect with one another. And so I
Yeah.
completely agree. It's having a laser focus on who you're trying to bring into your hotel, and it's finding a gap in the market as well, because UK country hotel experiences, people love that. Like, people will travel miles and miles for that. They'll travel 2 or 3 hours in the car to go to a beautiful hotel with a beautiful spa, but they have,
Mm,
fairly unfairly, I think this proves unfairly, have a reputation as being a little bit quiet and a little bit stuffy, which is fine if you're not
yeah.
traveling with kids, but you would feel really awkward if your kid was like crying in the dining room. Whereas this
Yeah.
didn't have that. It had all the elements of a country hotel, beautiful big lounge, like great gardens, really beautiful. But actually, the breakfast room was busiest at 7 o'clock because everyone with kids gets up early. The dinner room was busiest at 5:30 when everyone's having dinner
Oh,
with their kids. And then they give baby monitors so that you can, if your kids fall asleep and you feel safe and you've got them in the cot or whatever, you can choose to go and have a drink in the bar or a late dinner and watch them on a baby monitor. I mean, good times, right?
that's so amazing.
Times, isn't it?
That's what an innovative idea. That sounds fabulous. Good
So that's
kudos to
my
them.
highlight. That's my highlight. Wholesome family highlight. Sarah, what's yours?
Mine is the total opposite. I don't know if we can even call it a highlight. It is gossip, but we had to talk about it on the pod because I was reading through the news the other day and I came across this one. So there's a girl called Lily Phillips, girl, lady, whatever, uh, and she has an OnlyFans. She's an OnlyFans star, and she rented an Airbnb to use for filming uh scenes with 101 men in like a 24-hour period. Did not tell the owner of said Airbnb that it was going to be used for this. And I guess apparently it got back to him. I'm always curious how these things get out. Like, who's the one that tells you? I don't know who's more to blame. Like, was the owner like on the OnlyFans? Is that how they found out? Or just like hanging out with friends who found out? So either way, the whole thing's quite seedy. Apparently, he was absolutely livid that nobody told him what the purpose of the rental of the Airbnb was going to be for. But he did admit that they left it absolutely spotless. So even cleaner than than when they got it, when he turned the keys over. So I just found this to be super interesting. I know we're always talking about, especially when we get into some of the big city regulations and things like that. There have been times on the pod where we've talked about, renting out a property for events, which does not fall under the same category. Like it is because it's a different type of license, or is a different type of rental technically, if you're doing it by the hour or for filming or something like that. But I thought this was an interesting one because obviously it wasn't that type of contract. He thought it was just like, I don't know, nice group of friends coming for a long weekend. Well, so I
And
don't know. I had to mention it. I don't know what you think. If you were the host,
w-
where would your head go?
well, instantly, like, I mean, it's because it was well publicized, right? That she was doing this challenge of 101 men um over this period of time. It was talked about a lot in the news. So it's a commercial activity. It's a commercial activity within your property, right? So like that,
Yeah.
like people in this um environment, some people have made a lot of money out of this. I don't know exactly who, the publicist, the media company, the 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 performer, how, there's a lot of people that have made money from this whole thing. And it's really interesting that they felt comfortable enough, and they felt there'd be enough anonymity in just picking an Airbnb, and it wasn't. It was booked on Airbnb, so that's why I'm using that word
Yeah.
quite deliberately. We know that that's a short-term rental managed by a host who's put their own heart and soul into it. But as they saw it, let's book an Airbnb in central London and let's do it, right? And there might be a queue of 100 people outside, but for some reason, in central London, Notting Hill, I guess there's enough anonymity that in it of itself is not unusual. But it definitely, it shows you what some of the dangers can be of our space in terms of, guests not being genuine about the reasons for the trip. And yeah, you might just, again, like, this is a very well publicized event, and it's totally a media thing. um
Yeah.
but I'm sure it goes on all the time in terms of like drug dealing, other types of videos just being recorded. Again, you wouldn't admit if you found one, but it's it for me goes back to the point of like, well, they wouldn't have done that in a hotel. Why? Because you have to walk past the front desk, you have to check in, you have to give your passport details. So as an industry, we have to, it's a funny story to reference, but there's a serious message behind it, which is like, you should be using tools to make sure that you are finding out who these people are and taking it seriously. And you can't rely on the platform to do that for you. You have to do that yourself as an operator. So again, it's a good tale, isn't it? It's a good tale for, like, you wonder which properties were turned down because they didn't have the right configuration that was needed for the event, and an extra piece of information was asked for, like, an ID or a reason for travel, or the host wanted to meet you in person at the door, and they're going, no, 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 you can't come in. You're not going to enjoy what you see when you come in here. But I guess the moral of the
Yeah.
story is, the half of what goes on we never know, because like you say, everything's cleaned away, and properties are returned the way they were half the time. But still, you know it doesn't do the reputation of our industry any good, does it? If the neighbor discovers it, it's not a good look for the industry.
Yeah, I think for me, this is really interesting because in the States, actually, several years ago, I had a conversation with several people, and I think it had legs, and the project is still going as far as now. I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me, but it was a special platform designed specifically for this. So it was hosts who had usually like luxury properties and wanted to rent them out, not always for seedy activities. A lot of times it was just for like photo shoot or for something like that. And the host could approve all of the activities, but it was very transparent as to what was going on. And it was a commercial activity. And so the contracting was different. The the fees were different.
Yeah,
And nobody was under
insurance
any
is different.
guise that some nice couple and their friends were going to stay there, not that this lady isn't a nice lady. Maybe she is. I don't know. But, um, I think that's what's important. It's being truthful about kind of the use case
Yeah,
rather than that. And you're absolutely right. In a hotel, it wouldn't happen. So I think there are ways to go about this in a different way that doesn't necessarily imply hiring an Airbnb. So anyway, thought it was an
I
interesting. I feel
I
like we've
enjoyed
been
it. No,
going
it
on
really,
our
it is really interesting. Yeah, it is really interesting, and it is. It's our industry in the news, and not for necessarily the best reasons. But again, I like the fact that you talked about that. There are lots of sites you can use for like photo shoots, filming, and it's a really good use of your property. I went to Annette and Sarah, the Thanks for Visiting duo, really good. podcasters and influencers in the space. They put on an event in Columbus, Ohio, and they had someone come in from the who made all of their money from having film and photo shoots in their properties. Like, you know, they basically moved out of doing anything beyond like 2 or 3 nights of short term rental because they needed the blocks for the filming. So they did very very short term rental. And they were not looking for two. They weren't Nirvana for them was not a 2 week short term rental booking. It was using short term
Yeah.
rental for the around these film shoot bookings. They were making a ton of revenue, but the
Yeah.
wear and tear was like excessive. So you know, you charge a lot for it because you have got to then you're repainting every 6 months. It's not every 5 years, or I don't know how often you repaint with a short term rental. It depends, right? Depends which room we're talking about. But for this, you know, the wear and tear and the tread, how you style a home, how you design a home it is all important. So yeah, interesting. Okay, so we've done that one. Two very different hospitality highlights from us there. I like that. Let's talk. Let's talk. Here we are at start of 2025. We were back and forth this week chatting away, and we found this article in Condé Nast Traveler, great magazine, around what will be the biggest travel trends to expect in 2025. Sarah, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I do. So I had quite a few. I think our goal was to pick like two each to highlight, but I had quite a few, but I think they go really well together. So where my head goes is that I'll kind of list them and then group them. So these are the ones that really caught my eye. One was tourism, but in so wine tourism, but in lesser known places. So not going to Bordeaux or Tuscany or somewhere like that, but going to different types of areas. Maybe somewhere I don't know, like in Catalonia. Where I live, within an hour and a half drives of Barcelona. There's so many different options that you could go for local wineries, maybe for regions that are less known, rather than just going to Rioja in Spain, which is quite famous. No, another one is called JOMO, which is joy of missing out. So rather than FOMO, fear of missing out, it is like, no, I want to totally disconnect. I want to go away and not speak to anyone, and I'm going to turn my phone off, and I'm going to delete Instagram off my phone for a week, and to go somewhere remote. And I have lots of friends who are doing this, so I think that was an interesting one for me to see, because I have a friend right now who is in Lanzarote in the Canary Islands, and she like sent a message to the group chat, like, I'm signing off. I'll talk to you guys in a week when I'm back. And she'll randomly send a picture every now and again, but like that's it. And so I thought that was really interesting.
I love
The
that.
families,
I love the there's a company as well. I think they've been on the US. I think they've been on Good Morning Hospitality US. I think
yeah,
Michael Golding has had them on Unplugged, which is a guy called Hector who it's about a digital detox, right? So it's like phone is off, you're in a field, you know, you can either do it as a team, a big family, or do it on your own, right? But you actually like you get away from the trappings. And I think a lot of what we're seeing is the younger generation as well, and not necessarily craving the big city experience. They are craving that escape from the crowds. And I like what you said about the fact they are linked here. Your first two are certainly linked, aren't they? It's like, how do I get away from the crowds and either go somewhere where I'm completely unplugging, or I go to a less known vineyard. And
yeah,
I don't know if it's the same in the US, Sarah, you'll be able to comment, but I feel as Europeans, culturally, there's currency in being the first person to have done something, to have explored something, and to have discovered something. People want to they want to find the road less traveled. I don't know if that's the same for Americans, but certainly the case for Europeans, I think.
yeah. I don't know how good of a the accent would lie, but I don't know how good of a pulse I have on the states anymore. I haven't lived there like all of my adult life, basically. And all my friends talk about is like having kids and day to day stuff and insurance and boring stuff. We're in our
That's
30s,
that's
so
me.
yeah.
That's what I talk about. Why are you about it's
All
literally
I hear is like, man, our insurance premium went up and daycare was $15,000 last year. And like, come on, guys. So I don't know. I definitely I think for me, it is a lot more about the sustainability of travel, and not in the traditional sense, but more in the sense of like something that is budget friendly, something that doesn't mean that you have to leave your kids with grandma and granddad and you can take them with you. Like one of the other trends that kind of caught my eye was this idea of a family sabbatical or a long honeymoon, which is where you kind of combine some holiday and some work from home because of that flexibility and take a much longer stay, which I think is something that's really interesting that we've been seeing a trend in our industry for a while. And it definitely benefits the short term rental industry because when you go for more than like 5 days, all of the research suggests that people in general prefer a short-term rental, because they prefer that more kind of home like feeling. And so I think that was for me super interesting. And the detour destinations, it goes along with the ennotourism. So it's going somewhere like, hey, okay, we're gonna drive to this place, and let's say I'm gonna drive from Barcelona to Madrid, but I'm gonna stop at all these little places on the way. That maybe you wouldn't take a full trip those places, but if they're on the way, why not? Like, oh, it's only an hour out of the way. And so I think these are things that we're gonna keep seeing, and even if it is only an hour away, I've talked to quite a few people who then, like, will make a night of it. "Oh, we made this little detour, and there was this beautiful we found this beautiful country home on Airbnb, and we rented it for a night or 2 and decided to take a little break in the middle of the longer trip or something." And it might be a town of, like, 10 people, where you wouldn't normally think to go there on vacation, but I think it's really cool. I think it's really beneficial to our industry, especially given all of the regulatory stuff that's going on in the big cities. So,
I agree. I think that it's such an interesting trend to discuss the idea that like your little town where you found this beautiful old house that you've converted and turned into a short-term rental might seem like quite run of the mill and normal to you, but will seem really magnificent to someone that lives in the city. And understanding that and pitching it in that way in the marketing and the photos that you use, and showing what's available outdoors and around the property as well as within it. That's the actionable insight here, isn't it? It's like it's amazing, you know, people are looking for that untouched thing. So I always think about, even the village I grew up in, which is a fairly like run of the mill village in the northwest of England, that I would say is a very boring place. That I've noticed that there's lots of Airbnbs popping up, and people are escaping there for the weekend. Why? Because actually it's quite nice to walk along and like look at cows in a field. I get all that. And like, look at the old church building that for me represents like just a fairly stale place to grow up. Actually, for lots of people, it's beautiful. There's beauty in that for a couple of days. And I also think, again, back to our point of the heavily regulated urban market means that when people are looking and searching on the map, they're going to find less inventory in the city and find more outside it. So naturally, we'll maybe think about that as a holiday type. It does make me think that if I was an urban property manager, it's worth thinking about the villages surrounding your cities, right? And thinking that is an opportunity, like, can I stretch my operations and go 20 miles in this direction or 15 miles in this direction and just try and pull this into my ecosystem? I've got I can think of one or two property managers that I know who probably already do that. So they don't just think about their city, they think about their region. And again, I think important if you want to catch that trend that you're thinking that way.
yeah, absolutely. What caught your eye, Leo? Mine were all kind of in the same vein, but I
Well,
know something.
you
I
know me well enough to know where I've gone, right? But before I say where I've gone, I also quite like the anti-butler boom, number 15. So
Yeah.
interesting trend here about the idea that like luxury hospitality is evolving. So with travelers seeking out private, personalized experience, something more like a home, that emphasizes autonomy and the ability to relax and informality rather than a stuffy restaurant bar and a waiter wearing a suit and tops and tails and pouring your champagne for you. So whether it's in a home or a hotel that's presenting itself to be more like a home, informal luxury hospitality does seem to be a trend that we're talking about, which I think is very exciting. And I think it's true, isn't it? Like, people don't want to think they've got to dress up to go on holiday. The opposite, they want to
Yeah.
dress down, they want to relax, they want to unwind. And I think that, again, to me, it says that if you found a piece of land and you feel like there's the ability to build a really nice luxury short-term rental on it, it's probably worth doing, right? And for your own use and other people's use, because the the price you can charge it, people are starting to see the value in that. If it has all the trappings of a really nice hotel, as in if it has a pool, if it has a tennis court, but you have the privacy, you know that you're gonna have you're gonna have a great time. And we once a year we always try and go away as a wider family, and we've never once looked for a hotel because we want like a big space with like a games room and a tennis court. We want all those things so that we can just like hang out, and it's like an adventure holiday for a couple of days for kids and things like that. So it's not just in the luxury space; it's also in like different types of lodging experiences that we can think as a short-term rental industry, we can think of ourselves as providing that some of the experiences you would have had in the traveling you've had in a hotel, we should think about bringing them into homes because I think people are looking for it.
Mm.
But you know the one that really caught my eye.
Else
You know me.
I know what else caught your eye. There was
So
only one mention of this type of trend, and I knew it was gonna be one of yours. I knew it.
so athletic adventures. You teed me up at the start, didn't you? Um, so they're saying the thing I guess I would say about this Condé Nast article is they're talking about this as a new trend. I would say this has been the case in my friendship circles for probably I'm not gonna reveal my age because we all know Sarah likes to say how I'm in this older stage, but we've probably been doing holidays like this for sort of 5 to 7 years, I would say, of um you go away, but with the with you go in my case, I've gone away and I've run marathons in different cities around the world, right? And so you're having look at Sarah's face. She can't. She's trying to not look disdainful at that. I love it. So I've and so a group of you go away and you all stay in properties, run the marathon, and then go out and have a great night out, have dinner, stay for a couple of days, enjoy the city. That's like event day holidays, and I've done a load of those over the years, and I think that a lot of my friends are still doing them who haven't got kids or kids a bit older. They're still very much doing them. Then there's also the ones where you're trying to, I guess, train in something. So people that might be really into a certain thing, or they're training for a triathlon, they're training for a marathon, they love their cycling. They go and pick somewhere really picturesque, and they just do a week of like these training rides. Like I've always thought it about the cycling thing, like the Alps in the summer versus the Alps in the winter, where everyone's there to ski. Like cycling is the trend in the summer that's driving. Like accommodation providers in the Alps will tell you this. Like, thank God for the cyclists who are coming in and want to run, who want to ride up these hills, while in the winter people want to ski down them. So, I think this has been growing for a number of years as a trend, and I think that I kind of said actionable insights, right? If you're a property manager, you've got to think about what you can talk about in your area around you should be blogging about it, you should be doing YouTube videos about it, you should be doing stuff around what and trying to pull it into different events that happen in your area. But also, like, again, if you're in a hilly area, you should definitely be going for cyclists. If you're in a coastal area, why not be targeting people that are training for a triathlon? There are lots and lots of different trends. What they've picked up here in the article is like the growth in racket sports, which we know is really true, like paddle in Europe, pickleball in the US. And then obviously the wellness trend as well. So people wanting to do yoga retreats and things of that nature, really, really, really big. And if you're in an area that is well catered for that sort of thing, you should absolutely be referencing it, because people will travel if there's 3 or 4 really well-known yoga studios in an area, and then they also you can also drink wine and have a fun holiday as well. So it's not just all about being virtuous. It's about, I guess how I would see it is about making sure that when you go away, you don't just do the drinking of the wine and then come back 2 weeks later feeling terrible. It's about balancing it a bit, like probably when you went away hiking in the Alps, right? Like, you kind of earn the wine that you drink in the evening because you've done a lot of hiking in the day, right?
Yeah. That's true. I whenever I get on my high horse about like, "Oh my gosh, I would never do a marathon," or I don't understand long distance bikers." Some of my friends are like, "I don't understand you going for a 12-hour hike. That sounds miserable to me." Like, "What do you mean you did 20-kilometer hike? That sounds awful." And to me, it's wonderful. So I do get it, I guess. And I think for all the disdain that I sometimes display for extreme sports, I guess, I mean, for other people, like, hiking 20 kilometers is an extreme sport. So,
Yeah.
I
You're as
guess we
guilty
all
as the
have
rest
our
of
own.
us.
I
You're
will
as
withhold
guilty as
judgment.
the rest. Yeah, you're as
I
guilty as the rest.
am.
What I
I'm
liked
as
about that,
guilty and old as everyone else. We're all
yeah.
the same. We're all the same, Leo.
What I liked about that was I managed to pull you in. I hooked you in at the end there after saying about your hiking trip. So yeah, no, I think that one genuinely is really interesting. Again, I think we've talked about it before on the pod as well, but again, thinking about what's in your natural environment and how you create content around that is clearly, like, I've seen loads of property managers doing that incredibly well. Shout out to Rafi over at OVO Network, our friend Rafi from the pod, who does an amazing job, I think, of selling the virtues of a holiday in that part of the world, and also thinking about it from, we go back to this ecological footprint as well, which is so big in Europe in terms of people thinking about like how their holiday is having impact on the natural environment as well. Like that type of thing. I think France is quite progressive in that respect as well. So I definitely think that's a travel trend, isn't it? Is looking at what is the impact I'm having during my trip as well versus if I'm there to do if I'm there to kind of run around in the fresh air in the hills, I'm probably likely someone that's also interested in making sure that I'm doing it in a way that's not trashing the natural environment. So again, I think we should be thinking about those trends as well. Related, but not directly related to the article, I enjoyed reading something from Skift, TikTok to debut a travel-specific ads product for brands. So this I think is quite cool because some of the stuff we've been talking about here naturally leads on to influencer marketing, I think, and and we know that TikTok's very, very big for that and has been. So in terms of like people showing you, oh, this is me running a marathon up a hill in Sardinia. You should come to Sardinia. All of that type of stuff. They're now, I think, thinking that they can monetize this further by launching travel ads. And it's testing its first batch of travel-specific e-commerce products. One product called Travel Ads, designed to connect brands with users actively looking to book trips. So I think this is something we're going to be talking about more this year. Sarah, what do you think?
I don't know how effective it's gonna be, but I am willing to be proven wrong. So where my gut goes is that it's totally different to have somebody who is an influencer that you have been following for a while, let's say, you enjoy their content, you have at least the potentially false sense of some sort of rapport with that person. And so you see an experience that they do, or you just see the experience in general, even if you don't follow that influencer, and that has an impact on you because it seems impartial. I think as soon as we get into ads, it, we're very, I think, attuned to what is an ad versus what feels more like genuine content. And I know these influencers a lot of times, like, I mean, Saudi Arabia when they opened up kind of to tourism. Like this was their main strategy. It was influencers. They found especially women, beautiful women influencers that were followed by a lot of women because historically, that's not been a very woman friendly place to travel to. And so they've done entire campaigns using influencers and basically paying for these luxury trips for these influencers in exchange for them posting content about Saudi Arabia. I think that would work. I think if they're straight up ads, mm, I don't know. What do
Yeah.
you think?
No, interesting. I think that's right. For me, it's more of a watch it and let's watch and see because I agree it's new. It's new for them, isn't it? And genuine content versus paid for content versus ads. I think on all of these platforms has has more questions than answers at the moment, right? But again, TikTok normally do things well and normally do things properly. So I guess it's a wait and see. Look, I'm determined that we finish on time, but we have to reference. We were back and forth this week, gang, talking. I'm sharing an article from the Guardian, and Sarah said, "Oh gosh, I think I know this person." So, Sarah, tell us a bit more. Tell us about this article we're going to talk about in the Guardian very, very quick.
Yeah, awesome. So there was an article in The Guardian, but a story that I have known for a while. Because it's actually basically what happened is there was a girl who was doing rental arbitrage, so renting an apartment long term and then renting it out by rooms on Airbnb. Was charging like 127, $130 euros a night per room, which is pretty crazy. I think the apartment had 3 or 4 rooms. I don't remember the details. But, I mean, that is a chunk of change, and it was, occupied a lot of the time. And so interestingly enough, I found out about this a couple of months ago when it first sort of happened, because I have, had frequent, like, social encounters through mutual friends with this person. And the flat that I'm renovating in Raval, the designer that I've hired to do it, she and I were chatting one day and she was like, "Oh yeah, well, at least you own the property and you weren't, doing arbitrage because did you hear about," she was like, "Do you know so and so?" And I was like, "Yes." And she's like, "Oh, did you not hear about her property? What happened?" So she told me basically the only reason the girl got caught, guess why? She didn't pay her rent for like 3 months. So nobody complained. None of the neighbors cared. The Catalan government had no idea that it was operating as an Airbnb, I guess, because the neighbors didn't complain. And there's so many apartments to kind of track down. And so only when she didn't pay her rent, did the landlord decide to do some investigation. And in doing some investigation, found out she was operating as an illegal Airbnb. And so because she was in breach of her rental agreement, the police turned up and decided to actually, so the police turned up and they kicked out the Airbnb guest. They said, "You've got 2 minutes to get out of here. This property is being rented illegally," and just kicked them on the street.
Can you imagine?
So, I
Can you
mean,
imagine that,
talk
right?
about
Like, you're just settling into your morning coffee. Oh, what should we do today? Should we go and see Barcelona? Should we go and see the Sagrada Familia? Whatever. And then the cops are there, and you're like, you're out. You're out. You've got to go and find a hotel or another short-term rental. It's a nightmare, isn't it? Proof, if ever there was, that like lousy lousy regulation will lead to like this kind of illegal activity and customers ultimately losing out. So let's go back to like consumer here, which is if we forget about the consumer, then we're doomed as an industry, right? Like, there needs to be better vetting of apartments and listings to make sure that they are above board. Yeah, like absolutely. And then, you know, we we need to, I think, as a global industry, need to do more to seek out like illegal rentals. It's hard because we don't necessarily agree with the rules in Barcelona or different cities about the way they're being executed, but rules are rules, and it doesn't do any of us any favors if people are doing things illegally. And so we all just need to do more. We all need to do more because the reputation, again, like we've your hospitality, let's call it hospitality low light. In reality, your hospitality low light in this article that we finished with, they
mm,
again don't paint our industry in a great light, and it's because I think
yeah.
more could have been done at the platform side of things, or the platform side of things to make sure that people are above board. Or that person could have just paid their rent, and then we never would have gone into this mess.
Yeah, dang, she just paid the rent. She had a sweet deal. I just did some quick math because I love the numbers and my head goes there. So imagine she was paying 100, she was getting 127 a night on average, and she had 3 rooms, which is being generous, and she had a 60% occupancy rate, which is not unheard of in Barcelona. It's pretty typical, in fact, usually higher. Uh 83 grand a year, just over 83 grand a year that she was making. Just pay your rent.
But,
What are you doing? There's no
but
way that apartment costs more than, I don't know, 2 grand a month, let's say, to rent. So
yeah,
you're still turning 60 grand a year in profit. Pay your rent.
yeah, yeah. It's good money. It's good money, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, lovely to see you, Sarah. Gang, all you guys at home listening, if you've enjoyed today's show, please hit like, share, subscribe, and all the usual social places. Or go onto your podcasting app, wherever you're listening on, and leave us a 5-star review or a comment. 5-star review and comment, ideally. Sarah, I look forward to seeing you again next week, my friend.
Sounds good.